What to do when you don't want to do. I'm sure all of you have had days, myself included, many days, where you wake up, you have a ton to do, and you don't want to, and you don't feel like it, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you work for yourself, where technically you have the choice to do or not to do. What do you do then? Okay. And so sometimes we go into justification mode and we don't end up getting anything done. Sometimes we set up a lunch with a friend. Sometimes we pretend like we don't feel good. Sometimes we clean the house. But at the end of the day, we do not do what we're supposed to be doing. And so the number one thing that I would say is determine the source. So I'm going to go through this source with you, and then I'm going to give you 10 tips of kind of what to do when you don't want to do. So determine the source. Is this normal? Does this happen often? Or is it just an off day? Because let's get real, we are human, and if it's just an off day, sometimes it's an off day. Examine the root. Where is this coming from and why? Are you not excited about what you're doing? Did you lose your passion? Is it the food you're eating? And does food equal energy to you? Is it the fact that you haven't worked out in 2 months? What is going on? So examine that root. Now, let's say you've done that. You've examined the root. You've determined that this really isn't just an off day. This is kind of happening often for me. And there's got to be something more that I can do, some better habits that I can put into place so that I'm not constantly playing this game. Because here's the deal. To not feel like it once in a while is okay, and it happens to everyone. But to not feel like it day after day after day is not only exhausting to you, but everyone that has to hear you talk about it. So let's talk about 10 things that you can do to start to feel like it. Number one is figure out what gives you energy in this area. So if you're an entrepreneur and we're talking about business, what gives you energy? Is it the results? Is it meeting new people? Is it networking? Is it a certain number? Is it a certain paycheck? What is it that gives you energy, and what is it that makes you feel fulfilled? People always feel like doing things that give them energy and doing things that make them feel fulfilled. And so figure out exactly what that is. What I see a lot in entrepreneurs is they do not slow down and stop enough to make a list and say, this is what fulfills me. This is what gives me energy. This is what I'm really good at. This is what I was born to do. And then they're like, well, I don't feel like doing any of this. And they look at that list and they're like, well, it's because I'm not doing any of the things that I was created to do. And so make sure that you are very clear on. So the number one tip is figure out what fulfills you, what gives you energy, and what you are really, really good at. And ask yourself, have I been doing that? Do I have that on today's schedule? And could that possibly be why I am excited or I'm not excited to work? Number two, ask yourself, when was the last time I felt proud of myself in this area of my life? So if we're talking about business, when is the last time you felt really proud of yourself? Like you did something that you weren't necessarily certain that you could do, that maybe wasn't guaranteed. When was the last time that you can think of that you had tears in your eyes because you were like, I did it? And if you cannot even think of a time, let's start that now, because what in the world? You should be feeling that every single day. I was really proud of myself when I came up with this idea. I was proud of myself when I talked to this person and it changed their perspective. I was proud of myself when I did something when I didn't feel like doing it. When was the last time you were proud of yourself in this area? If it's an exercise, maybe you ran a half marathon, maybe you worked out 5 days a week for the first time in years, but when was the last time you were proud of yourself? You've got to hang on to those feelings, because those feelings make you want to have more of those feelings. If what you're associating with this thing, with exercise, with business, with food, with whatever area you are trying to gain more control over and feel like doing it, if you're associating pride points with it, you're going to be more likely to do it. If you're associating pain or failure or stumbling or bloody knees or whatever, then you're not going to do it. And so it's so critical to know, when was the last time you felt proud of yourself? And if you cannot pinpoint it, go create it. Go create a proud moment today so that you have one to reflect back on. Not having one is not an excuse, okay? So not having one means you've got to go. The sense of urgency to go out and get one is like right now. Number three is figure out what you are avoiding. So a lot of times When we don't feel like it, it's fear-based. So what are you avoiding? Oftentimes our emotions are a distraction. So saying, oh, I just didn't feel like it, I just couldn't get my energy level to where it needed to be, that's a distraction. It's a distraction for you to justify what you're actually afraid to chase down. So figure that out. What are you avoiding? What would happen if you played full out? Are you afraid that if you play full out, you won't make it to the finish line? What are you avoiding? Is there a task you've been avoiding? So you're telling yourself you don't feel like doing it. What have you been avoiding is number 3. And remembering that emotion is often just a mask and a distraction for what is really going on. So remember, feeling it is okay. Allowing it to control your day, not okay. So it's okay to be fearful, but you do it anyway. It's okay to be fearful and you continue on. It's okay to acknowledge this is uncomfortable. I don't want to do it. I've been avoiding it, but you do it anyway. Oftentimes a cycle we get stuck in is, well, I don't feel perfectly content or good about this, so I'm just going to stop and I'm not going to do it. Number 4 is talk to yourself. Don't listen to yourself. Talk to yourself. Don't listen to yourself. Tell yourself what kind of day it's going to be. Tell yourself from this day forward, this is who I am. Talk to yourself. If you choose to listen instead of talk to yourself, Stephen Furtick says this, 50% of the time, it's not going to be something good. So if you wake up and you say, okay, how do we feel today? 50% of the time, it's going to be awful, cranky, tired, grumpy. I don't want to, everything hurts. And so talk to yourself and tell yourself how it's going to go. Talk to yourself. Don't listen to yourself. That's number 4. Number 5 is input, structure, and accountability. The reason that people in corporate America do so well, right? And people in, clock out types of jobs do so well. Like my husband is a teacher. The reason he does so well, whether he feels like it or not, is because he has to show up. Like it doesn't matter if he feels like it. It doesn't really matter what's going on in his life. He's contracted, and if he wants to keep his job, he shows up. With entrepreneurs, we oftentimes choose not to show up for ourselves and then wonder why there's no growth, which doesn't make any sense. And so implement structure and accountability so that it's structured more like that. I've got to do it anyway. I have to show up. A lot of times I hear from entrepreneurs, I don't want structure and I don't want accountability. If I wanted that, I would go work for someone else. Well, if you cannot input structure for yourself or accountability for yourself and with yourself, you're going to end up working for someone else because you're going to fail as an entrepreneur. And so if you find yourself not feeling like it often, structure and accountability are critical to your success. Otherwise, you're going to end up working for someone else. For me, I would way rather be accountable to me and disciplined to me and structured to me than to someone else eventually, because I chose not to do it with myself. And so be a good employee to your employer. So be a good person to yourself. So I have a very structured schedule that I stick to, whether I feel like it or not. I have accountability where I check in with my mentors, whether I feel like it or not. And so create that. I have had so many days where my morning gets thrown off or something happens where I could have easily spent the next 2 hours trying to recover, but I treat it like I would a normal job. So if my workday starts at 8, my workday starts at 8 no matter what I feel like, because I have the structure in place. Number 6 is change your environment. So often the environment that we are in does not allow us to be productive. And it doesn't have to be a drastic change. It could be moving from the dining room table into your office. It could be leaving your bedroom and going to a coffee shop. It could be working outside, but change your environment. A lot of times when you don't feel like it, you've got to get up, get dressed, get cute, smell good, and go and change your environment, and it will likely change your mood. Okay, so number 6 is change your environment. Number 7 is implement a reward system. Okay, this works brilliantly on dogs. It works brilliantly on children, and it works brilliantly on adult entrepreneurs. I remember I used to have a reward system set up where for every 10 phone calls I made, I got to watch 10 minutes of my favorite TV show. So it was 10 calls for 10 minutes, 10 calls for 10 minutes, because I was so scared about making the calls. And I wasn't just going to be like a weirdo that sat around and watched TV all day. And so I had to earn it. So I would make 10 calls, which I didn't want to do. And it made me so nervous, and I would get a reward. So implement some sort of a reward system, because we are wired just like everyone else. Number 8 is chase down a relevant win. I remember I was talking to someone, one of my leaders, and she said, hey, I'm having a really bad morning. I don't even know what I'm doing on the phone with you. I'm going to go chase down some wins and then I'll call you back. And so she knew that she was not setting herself up for success by feeling the way she was feeling. So she went and she chased down some wins, and she called me back a couple hours later and she said, this is what I did. Here's what I chased down. This is what's going on. And her headspace was completely different, because winning never makes anyone sad. Winning never makes anyone sad. So if you don't feel like it, figure out, what is the quickest win I could get right now that's going to make me feel good? What's the quickest win that I could chase down right now to feel good? Number 9 is walk yourself through this exercise and consider it. If I do this, this will happen. If I don't, this will happen. If I continue to show up for myself every single day and be my best, where will I be a year from now? Where will I be 10 years from now? Where will I be 15 years from now? Where will I be 20 years from now? If I continue to not show up for myself every single day, where will I be a year from now? For most of you, you will no longer own your own business. And so when you walk yourself through that exercise and you consider what happens when I do and what happens when I don't, and you realize the ramifications, you are way more likely to do than to do not. So consider your alternative. And not only does the alternative scare me personally, but what also really excites me is what results will happen if I do. If I do, for every day for the next year. If I do, where will I be a year from now, 5 years from now? That is exciting because the results are huge. And so remember that nothing stays the same. You will drift. And guess what? Nothing ever drifts up. So if you choose to not show up, if you choose to not feel like it day after day after day, you will just drift down, which nobody wants to go. Okay, and the last one, number 10, the most brilliant tip of all, is do it anyway. Do it anyway. Sometimes it just doesn't matter if you feel like it or not. If you are, a parent and your kids are really sick and they wake up at 2 a.m. because they puked all over themselves, it doesn't matter if you feel like it or don't. If you're tired, if you're crabby, if you have to wake up early the next morning, it doesn't matter. You're going to clean up the puke. You don't want to do it. It's not pretty. Nobody wants to do it, but you're going to do it. And so show up for your business in that way and do it anyway. And know that the more times that you show up when you don't feel like it, the more days you're likely to have that you do feel like it and you get to reap the rewards. But the people that oftentimes give in to that feeling of I don't feel like it are the ones that end up not having a business to own at all. And that is definitely not what you want. So I hope those tips helped. Can't wait to hear feedback. Bye.